What is death from a spiritual perspective, and what happens to some souls that get stuck and aren't able to move on? In doing past life regression, higher self hypnosis, and life in between life hypnosis, I've seen a number of instances where people died in a past life and they weren't able to move on. I actually had to assist them. In that case, I'll call in some angels or some guides to help them move on to the spirit realm. But why do they get stuck, and what is death? In his book called The Power of Now, author Eckhart Tolle describes death as this, and I'm going to read it from his book. He says that death is death of the false self. When you go through this portal called death, you cease to derive your identity from your psychological man-made form. In other words, I'm putting this in there, you cease to derive your identity with your personality. He said, you then realize that death is an illusion, just as your identification with form, or your body, or your personality self, is also an illusion. All that death is the end of this illusion. And he also says it's only painful as long as you cling to that illusion. And after you die, he says, your true nature remains, not necessarily your personality, because in different lives, you have different personalities. In one life, you might be an old, bitter person. In one life, your personality might be stern and uncaring. And in another life, you might be a very carefree soul who takes all kinds of risks and chances. We choose different personalities for different purposes and different experiences that we want. They're never the same. So we don't carry those personalities from life to life to life, just our true nature. Eckhart Tolle says, nothing that is real is ever lost. And so why do some souls get stuck after they die? Let me give you a hypnosis story as an example. So this woman was a male in a past life, and he worked for the king's court as a soldier. And when that particular regime was overthrown, he ran for his life in the forest. He knew that if the people found him, they would kill him. Well, the people eventually did find him, and they hung him after taking all of his clothes off. He was so fearful of death and so distraught that he was killed this way that he wandered through the forest in spirit form for a very long time. That fractal of his soul, that fractal of his consciousness did not move on, did not go back into the spirit realm, and I actually had to call some angels down to help that soul get back into the spirit realm. I see this often when people are really attached to a certain life or to that personality. They just don't want to move on. They want to stay around and see how things go, or they want to stay around and see how their family fares. Or they're just really in a lot of fear about death itself. So if you can remember that death is just the dropping of an illusion, it's nothing more than that. It's just a portal. You're just leaving behind the skin suit that you currently occupy, and you're moving on to much, much happier and better things. And moving on to the next adventure that your soul wants you to, you can eliminate a lot of the fear and a lot of the attachment you might have to your current self, to your current personality.